Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Keep on. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Kandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Tiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, Govindam Adipurusham
Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe. Jai Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bando muye savadana mate. Bando muye savadana mate. Yahara prasade bai e bhavatori ajay. Yahara prasade bai e bhavatori ajay. Krishna prapti hoy yanha hoy te. Krishna prapti hoy yanha hoy te. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. Arana kori ho mane asha. Arana kori ho mane asha. Shri Guru Charane Rate Aise Utama Gati. Shri Guru Charane Rate Aise Utama Gati. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. Chakudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se. Chakudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se. Dive gyan hriday prakashita. Dive gyan hriday prakashita. Prema bhakti aha hoite. Avidya vinashayate. Prema bhakti yaha hoite. Avidya vinashayate. Vede Gaya Hara Charita. Vede Gaya Hara Charita. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokena lokera jivana. Lokena lokera jivana. Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya Dehamore Pada Choya. Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya Dehamore Pada Choya. Ebeyas Gushuk Tribhuvana. Ebeyas Gushuk Tribhuvana. Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya Dehamore Pada Choya. Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya Dehamore Pada Choya. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Go Haribo. Nitai Go Haribo, 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 Nitai Go Haribo. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarane. Thank you. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindavan. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Gaurahari, Nitai Gauranga, Gaurahari. Gaura Hare Jaya Gaura Hare. Gaura Hare Jaya Gaura Hare. Gaura Hare Jaya Gaura Hare. Oh, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga, Gaura Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Ballava. Bring him here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jai Krishna Balaram. Lalita Vishaka Jaya Radhe Sham, Lalita Vishaka Jaya Radhe Sham. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
गए मिल गया धन्यवाद
वो मेरे को दे दो
कोइले कृष्ण अदमेर प्रति बर कृपा
very small thing I think the big bag big bag I think Prabhupada
बर कृपा कोइले कृष्ण अदमेर प्रति बर कृपा की लागिया नीले ता करो एबे गते की लागिया नीले ता करो अच्छा वही ना
wrong class
कृष्ण तव पुण्य हवे बाय कृष्ण तव पुण्य हवे बाय एकार ज करिबे जबे राधा रानी जबे राधा
Can I have a songbook? Thank you.
Jai
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutle Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Desha Tarine. The actual solar date that Srila Prabhupada left for America was August 13th, but today we're celebrating the Titi. We're celebrating the Titi, and then in 35 days we'll also hear about Prabhupada's arrival in America. Abhay Charan was born on September 1st, 1896, in an aristocratic Kayastha family in Calcutta, the capital of British India. He was educated at Scottish Church College, where he received an excellent education in English and Sanskrit. He was the leader amongst his friends. One day, a friend named Narendranath Mulak invites him to visit a saintly person whom he recently met at a nearby ashram, Prabhupada. Narendra Mulak was a very rich man, and he informed me that one very nice old sannyasi had come to his house and invited him to go to Ultadanga, where there was a Gaudiya Mat. He said he wished to go there and asked me, "Why don't I come? Let us go together." He was my very intimate friend. At that time, I was a little pessimistic. I thought, I know all these sadhus, so I said, I'm not going. But he forced me. Why not? Come on. Finally, I told, let us go. So I went to see His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1922 in that Ultadanga building. At that time, Srila Prabhupada was sitting on the roof where there was a small room. We were welcomed there because Narendra Mulak was known to the devotees as a very rich man and had contributed some money. We went to see Prabhupada and offered our obeisances. Immediately, Prabhupada said to me, "Because you are an educated young man, why don't you preach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?" I replied to him, "Sir, we are a dependent nation. Who will hear our message? We can talk about all of these things after we get independence." I was politically minded at that time, but he refuted my arguments. Certainly, I was defeated, and I took his words very seriously. I appreciated him. Then we were offered some prasadam and came down from there. My friend Narendra Mulak asked me, "How did you like this sadhu?" I said, "Yes, he is a sadhu in whose hands Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message is there, and it will be done. It will be successfully preached." I think it was very nice. That was my appreciation. Then in 1923, I resigned my post at Bose's laboratory, and I accepted the agency for the whole of UP, beginning from the Mughal side up to New Delhi. I made my head office in Allahabad. I was always thinking that yes, I have met a very nice sadhu. From the very beginning, that was my impression, that I had met a real sadhu. So actually, I perceived that the words, "Lavamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy," a moment's association with the pure devotee can give all perfection, were real. I perceived that. I was impressed so much by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That impression continued with me. Yes, Guru Maharaj wanted that Mahaprabhu's message be preached abroad, and the Gaudiya Mat people did not do anything. So I thought, let me try in this old age. This inspiration came to go to the West, and I went. And by His grace, it has become a little successful. That's all. I have no credit. It is all the blessings of Guru and Vaishnava. I did not know how things were happening. I am not at all a bona fide person. It is only through Charya Vaishnava Seva, Nishtara Payache Keba. Without serving an ideal Vaishnava, who can be delivered from the clutches of Maya? In modern India, people want to copy the ways of the Western countries, such as Great Britain and America. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions were to preach Krishna consciousness around the world in the English language. If the Westerners take to Krishna consciousness, then India may better realize the importance of her own culture. One night, Abhay dreams of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati asking him to take sannyas. Becoming a sannyasi means spending all of one's time preaching Krishna consciousness on behalf of the spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya. Many years earlier, Abhay felt afraid when he first had a similar dream. Now, at 63 years old, he knows that the time is right. Abhay talks to his godbrother Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj about sannyas. He explains his desire to go to America and preach on behalf of their spiritual master. Keshav Maharaj offers Abhay sannyas initiation in the year 1959. Abhay is now called Bhaktivedanta Swami. He can now dedicate his entire life to preaching the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In Vrindavan, he keeps a room at the Radha Damodar temple. There he writes and becomes inspired to bring Krishna consciousness to the West. He also rents a room at Chippiwada in New Delhi, where he prints Back to Godhead and preaches. He often travels back and forth on the train. In 1962, he gets a donation to print an English edition of the Srimad bhagavatam and begins printing in Delhi. Every day he visits the printers, making sure that the book is coming out nicely. After a few years and much hard work, he is able to print 3 volumes of Srimad bhagavatam. It is 1965, and Bhaktivedanta Swami is now 69 years old. Scholars all over India know his books. He feels it is time to travel to America, but he needs to find a way to get there. It had been more than 40 years since Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati asked him to preach Krishna consciousness in the West. At first it seemed impossible. Now he was free to travel. Srila Prabhupada, he says, I planned that I must go to America. Generally they go to London, but I did not want to go to London. I was simply thinking how to go to New York. I was scheming whether I shall go this way through Tokyo, Japan, or that way. Which way is cheaper? That was my proposal. And I was targeting to New York always. Sometimes I was dreaming that I have come to New York. Then he met Mr. Agarwal, a Mathura businessman, and mentioned to him that he wanted to go to the West. Although Mr. Agarwal had known Bhaktivedanta Swami for only a few minutes, he volunteered to try to get him a sponsor in America. It was something Mr. Agarwal had done a number of times when he met a sadhu who mentioned going abroad to teach Hindu culture. He would ask his son, an engineer in Pennsylvania, to send back a sponsorship form. When Mr. Agarwal volunteered to help in this way, Bhaktivedanta Swami urged him, please, to do so. Srila Prabhupada, I did not say anything seriously to Mr. Agarwal, but perhaps he took it very seriously. I asked him, well, why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor so that I can go there? I want to preach there. While in Delhi, to his surprise, he was contacted by the Ministry of External Affairs and informed that his no objection certificate for going to the US was ready. Since he had not instigated any proceedings for leaving the country, he had to inquire from the ministry about what had happened. They showed him the statutory declaration form signed by Mr. Gopal Agarwal of Butler, Pennsylvania. Mr. Agarwal solemnly declared that he would bear the expenses of Bhaktivedanta Swami during his stay in the US. Srila Prabhupada. Whatever the correspondence was there between father and son, I did not know. I simply asked him, "Why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor?" And now, after 3 or 4 months, the no objection certificate was sent from the Indian consulate in New York to me. He had already sponsored my arrival there for 1 month, and all of a sudden, I got the paper. At his father's request, Gopal Agarwal had done as he had done for several other sadhus, none of whom had ever gone to America. It was just a formality, something to satisfy his father. Gopal had requested a form from the Indian consulate in New York, obtained a statement from his employer certifying his monthly salary, gotten a letter from his bank showing his balance as of April 1965, and had the form notarized. It had been stamped and approved in New York and sent to Delhi. Now Bhaktivedanta Swami had a sponsor, but he still needed a passport, visa, P-form, and travel fare. The passport was not very difficult to obtain, and by June 10th, he had his passport. Carefully, he penned in his address at the Radha Krishna temple in Chippiwada and wrote his father's name, Gaur Mahande. With his passport and sponsorship papers, he now went to Bombay. He wanted a ticket for America and approached Sumati Morarji. He showed his sponsorship papers to her secretary, Mr. Chokshi, who was impressed. He went to Mrs. Morarji on his behalf. "The Swami from Vrindavan is here. He has a sponsor and he wants to go to America. He wants you to send him on a ship." Mrs. Morarji said no. The Swami was too old to go and expect to accomplish anything. She wanted him to stay in India and complete the Srimad bhagavatam. Why go to the States? Finish the job here. But he was fixed on going. He coached Mr. Chokshi on what he should say. "I find this gentleman very inspired to go and preach something to the people there." But she again said no. The Swami was not healthy. It would be too cold there. He might not be able to come back. People in America were not so cooperative, and they would probably not listen to him. Exasperated with Mr. Chokshi's ineffectiveness, he demanded a personal interview. It was granted, and he presented his request. "Please give me 1 ticket." Sumati Morarji was concerned. "Swamiji, you're so old. You're taking this responsibility. Do you think it is all right?" He reassured her, lifting his hand as if to reassure a doubting daughter. "It is all right. But do you know what my secretaries think? They say Swamiji is going to die there." He made a face as if to dismiss a foolish rumor, and again insisted that she give him a ticket. "All right," she said, "get your P-form, and I will make an arrangement to send you by our ship." Bhaktivedanta Swami smiled brilliantly and happily left her offices, past her amazed and skeptical clerks. A P-form is another necessity for an Indian national who wants to leave the country. It is a certificate given by the State Bank of India certifying that the person has no excessive debts in India and is cleared by the banks. That would take a while to obtain. And he also did not yet have a US visa. He needed to pursue these government permissions in Bombay, but he had no place to stay. So Mrs. Morarji agreed to let him reside at the Scindia colony, a compound of apartments for employees of the Scindia company. He stayed in a small, unfurnished apartment with only his trunk and typewriter. The resident Scindia employees all knew that Mrs. Morarji was sending him to the West, and some of them became interested in his cause. They were impressed, for although he was so old, he was going abroad to preach. He was a special sadhu, a scholar. They heard from him how he was taking hundreds of copies of his books with him, but no money. He became a celebrity at the Scindia colony. Every day he would go out trying to get his visa and P-form as quickly as possible, selling his books and seeking contacts and supporters for his future Srimad Bhagavatam publishing. One neighbor, Mr. Nagarajan, tried to help. Mrs. Nagarajan says, when he came home, we used to give him courage, and we used to tell him, Swamiji, one day you will achieve your target. He would say, time is still not right. Time is still not right. They are all agyanis. They don't understand, but still I must carry on. Sometimes I would go by and his chatter would be on the chair, but he would be sitting on the windowsill. I would ask him, Swamiji, did you have any good contacts? He would say, not much today. I didn't get much, and it is depressing. Tomorrow Krishna will give me more details. And he would sit there quietly. Bhaktivedanta Swami had a page printed entitled My Mission, and he would show it to influential men in his attempts to get further financing for Srimad Bhagavatam. Mrs. Morarji. He used to come in the evening and sing the verses in rhythmic tunes, as is usually done with the Bhagavatam. At certain points, when you sit and discuss, you raise so many points. He was commenting on certain points, but it was all from the Bhagavatam. So he used to sit and explain to me and then go. He could give time, and I could hear him. That was for about 10 or 15 days. His backing by Scindia and his sponsorship in the US were a strong presentation, and with the help of the people at Scindia, he obtained his visa on July 28, 1965. But the P-form proceedings went slowly and even threatened to be a last insurmountable obstacle. Srila Prabhupada. Formerly, there was no restriction for going outside. But for a sannyasi like me, I had so much difficulty obtaining the government permission to go out. I had applied for the P-form sanction, but no sanction was coming. Then I went to the State Bank of India. The officer told me, Swamiji, you are sponsored by a private man, so we cannot accept. If you were invited by some institution, then we could consider, but you were invited by a private man for 1 month. And after 1 month, if you are in difficulty, there will be so many obstacles. But I had already prepared everything to go. So I said, what have you done? He said, I have decided not to sanction your P-form. I said, no, don't do this. You better send me to your superior. It should not be like that. He took my request, and he sent the file to the chief official of foreign exchange. He was the supreme man in State Bank of India. I went to see him. I asked his secretary, do you have such and such a file? You kindly put it to Mr. Rao. I went to see him. I was waiting. Mr. Rao came personally. He said, Swamiji, I passed your case. Don't worry. Following Mrs. Morarji's instruction, her secretary, Mr. Chokshi, took him to buy a wool jacket and other woolen clothes. Mr. Chokshi spent about rupees 250 on new clothes, including some new dhotis. At Swamiji's request, Mr. Chokshi printed 500 copies of a small pamphlet containing Sri Sikshastakam and an advertisement for Srimad Bhagavatam, in the context of an advertisement for the Scindia Steamship Company. This is Prabhupada in his winter coat in New York. Mr. Chokshi, I asked him, why couldn't you go earlier? Why do you want to go now to the States at this age? He replied that, "I will be able to do something good, I am sure." His idea was that someone should be there who would be able to go near people who were lost in life and teach them and tell them what the correct thing is. I asked him so many times, "Why do you want to go to the States? Why don't you start something in Bombay or Delhi or Vrindavan?" I was teasing him also. "You're interested in seeing the States, therefore you want to go. All Swamijis want to go to the States, and you want to enjoy there." He said, "What have I got to see? I have finished my life." Finally, Mrs. Morarji scheduled a place for him on one of her ships, the Jaladuta, which was sailing from Calcutta on August 13th. She had made certain that he would travel on a ship whose captain understood the needs of a vegetarian and a Brahmin. Mrs. Morarji told the Jaladuta's captain, Arun Pandya, to carry extra vegetables and fruits for the Swami. Mr. Chokshi spent the last 2 days with Swamiji in Bombay, picking up the pamphlets at the press, purchasing clothes, and driving him to the station to catch the train for Calcutta. He arrived in Calcutta about 2 weeks before the Jaladuta's departure. Though he had lived much of his life in the city, he now had nowhere to stay. It was as he had written in his Vrindavan bhajan, "I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything, but I have no money, so they are a fruitless glory." Although in this city he had been so carefully nurtured as a child, those early days were also gone forever. This is also from Vrindavan bhajan. "Where have my loving father and mother gone to now? And where are all my elders, who were my own folk? Who will give me news of them? Tell me who. All that is left of this family life is a list of names." This is Srila Prabhupada and his brother at the death ceremony of his father, Gaur Mohan De. Out of the hundreds of people in Calcutta whom he knew, he chose to stay with Mr. Shishir Bhattacharya, a kirtan singer he had met at the governor's house in Lucknow. Mr. Bhattacharya was not a relative, disciple, or even a close friend, but he was willing to help. Swamiji called at his place and informed him that he would be leaving on a cargo ship in a few days. He needed a place to stay and he would like to give some lectures. Mr. Bhattacharya immediately began to arrange a few private meetings at friends' homes where he would sing and Swamiji would then speak. Mr. Bhattacharya thought the sadhus leaving for America should make an important news story, but none of the newspapers wrote anything. Finally, they visited the Dainik Bashumati, a local Bengali daily, which agreed to print a small article with Swamiji's picture. On August 6th, he traveled to Mayapur to visit the Samadhi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then he returned to Calcutta, where Mr. Bhattacharya continued to assist him with his final business and speaking engagements. Mr. Bhattacharya says, "We just took a hired taxi to this place and that place, and he would go for preaching. I talked to him during the preaching. But once, when I was coming back from the preaching, I crossed him in something or argued. Whenever we argued, then he was shouting. He was very